Hey Fit Fam, Coach Ryan from TeamFFLEX. Today we're going to talk about how to pick your division between fit model, bikini, wellness, and figure. So this video is for all you women out there that are having a hard time trying to decide what division is going to be the best for you, what considerations you need to have, should you be changing your division. I'm going to break it all down for you and explain step by step everything you need to know about each one of these divisions so that by the end of this video, no doubt you will have a very good insight into exactly what division you need to be doing, where you should spend your time, what you should train for, and which one's going to be ultimately the best for you. And this is a video that I have done before, but not in this way because we didn't have fit model. The divisions have also evolved a lot. I think it's been well over a year since I probably last done this exact breakdown, and also, you know, things are just constantly changing in the sport of bodybuilding, especially in the women's side, where now we're having new divisions. You know, things are changing, criteria shifting, and I know mostly all of you, a lot of you out here watching are having a hard time figuring out where you should be, what you should be doing, where you should be spending your time. And that's no way to be your best competitor. So let's break it down. Let's talk about it, and let's get you some answers on which division is going to be the best one for you. Okay. So first and foremost, we're going to talk about fit model. Fit model is the newest division in the hierarchy of divisions, if you will. It is at the bottom of the totem pole, so to speak, okay? And what I mean by that is it requires the least amount of muscle and it requires the least amount of conditioning, or being lean. That's another word for conditioning, how lean you are, how much body fat you show. That's what conditioning means. So in fit model, it's basically a throwback to old school bikini. About 10 years ago, what bikini looked like on stages across the NPC, the IFBB, is really what they're trying to go for with fit model, okay? So this division does entail, slight roundness to the upper body, some development in the shoulders there, a taper into the waist, a narrow waist effect, and then lower body musculature in the glutes, the quads, and the hamstrings that's going to be balanced and symmetrical to the rest of your physique. So symmetrical to your waistline, symmetrical to your upper body musculature, your shoulders, everything there. Now, this is a division that has the least amount of muscle required to be a competitor in the NPC and into the IFBB for that matter. So this is for all the women out there that are watching, that have been on the fence. You've looked at bikini, you've looked at wellness, you've looked at maybe figure, you've looked at all these divisions and thought, those are a bit too extreme. I don't really want to, build that much muscle. I don't like how lean that looks. I don't want that. Well, fit model has come to a place where you can have less muscle, you can still have great shape, you can have all that, you can still have a muscular base, and you can also not have to go to those levels where you have those, more rounded out, bigger shoulders, things like that. This is a division for women that like to train, and they like to train in the gym, and they like to have a good time training. They don't want to be spending hours and hours in the gym, doing weights countlessly. They're also not people that are in there wanting to be doing a ton of cardio or dieting as hard as possible, basically, to achieve a certain level of leanness. For fit model, it's the most attainable, the most sustainable, and the most, bottom tier, if you will, the introductory level for competitors to get into. And that's really the way it's being presented. That's what we're seeing on stages. And it's a great place for a lot of women who have, in other words, kind of wrote off the sport, thought it wasn't a good place to be. It's also a decent place for some competitors that have been competing in bikini and maybe thought that, okay, I'm not liking the way that criteria is going. I'm not liking those standards. I'd love to, win my shows, get a pro card, but I don't want to necessarily have to look like the bikini pros of today. Well, fit model presents a place for you to kind of flash back again 10 years and see if you fit better there with a little bit less muscle, a little bit less condition. This division does specifically focus on not showing, super cut up abs, things like that would be too lean. It also does not focus on the glute tie-in. So you're specifically actually noted to not have a glute tie-in in the official rules. So if that's one of those things that you are out there and you like that glute tie-in, you want that look, you've been training for that for years, not going to be the best division for you because it's just not what they're looking for, okay? So this is a shapely type of physique. It showcases the hourglass shape. It is the softest level conditioning. And from a coaching's perspective, I'll tell you what you could expect, right? For the fit model athletes I'm coaching, okay, they're training right now about 3 to 4 days a week. That's either going to be a full body split or some type of a body part split that could be an upper and a lower and an upper and a lower. I do all custom program design. I do all my training, for each person, each athlete, each client based on what they need. But as a general sense, you could expect fit model athletes training 3 to 4 days a week in the gym with weights to attain that type of shape. Totally reasonable to expect that. And it is probably going to be what most are going to be doing. Cardio wise, some athletes, if you're already in a leaner relative spot, you don't have a lot of body fat to lose, in other words, right? Like some competitors come from the other side of the spectrum where they used to be very overweight or obese and they have a lot of weight to lose. You may need to be doing some cardio, but most fit model athletes, I think, can get away with very minimal cardio, maybe just warm-ups, a couple minutes here and there, 10 minutes in a warm-up, something like that, or a couple short sessions a week, 15, 20 minutes a hit or something. Most athletes, I will think, and the way that I'm coaching at least, can get away with doing zero cardio and just focused on diet. So dieting wise, what you can expect, it's going to be a overall diet that contains more calories. You're going to be in a higher level of calories. You're not going to have to diet as hard. You're not going to have to diet as low. And then thus, that means it's a lot easier to stick to a diet. So fit model is, it's the most attainable look. It's the most sustainable look. It's also the most attainable, sustainable way to be a competitor as far as what you have to do. Because again, we're talking about 3-4 days in a week in the gym, maybe no cardio, light dieting, not hard dieting, not having to, deal with a lot of the quote unquote normal miseries of prep that I don't believe in anybody, but we'll talk about that when we get to the other divisions. But it's a place where you can get in and you can compete and you can really enjoy that and not have to go to the extreme side of the sport, if you will, right? And that's exactly what it's here for. That's exactly why it's here. Notes that you will want to consider otherwise, right? Different poses. Some athletes do not like the poses. Some athletes love them. You want to make sure you know that. Also, the suit cut is much more modest in this division. It's about 50% of glute coverage. So it's it looks more like an off the rack type of bikini you would get from, let's say, a Target or a Walmart, something like that. It also does not contain rhinestones and bling and all that kind of stuff that, is in some of the other divisions you may have seen. So if those are deal breakers for you, those are things you want to know about this division. Fit model ultimately is probably the best division for athletes coming into the sport for the first time that have otherwise looked at the other divisions and said, no way, would never want a wellness lower body, would never want to be as lean as you need to be for bikini, wouldn't even like that look, that shape, not for me. Well, this presents a place where you can do that. It's also for those that want to compete and not spend 6 days a week in the gym, not spend up to an hour a day doing cardio if that's what's required of your prep, and also not dieting as aggressively. So it's a spot where you can be a competitor and really introduce yourself into the sport and even thrive there. Keep in mind, you can get a pro card in this division, so you could stay in this division. I think a lot of athletes may jump into this division and eventually move on into bikini, things like that. But again, brand new division. It's a lot to be said for it, and we will have to see where it goes. I'm talking a lot, but I want to give you a lot of insight into these divisions and really make sure that we have a concrete look for all of you watching to what's going to be the best division for you. I do also have a quiz. I'm going to mention it now before I forget. We have a quiz in the description where you can jump down in there and you can take a quiz and see what division is going to be best for you. If you don't want to watch all the way through, I honestly suggest watch all the way through and take the quiz anyway, and you'll have bulletproof answers into what division is going to be for you. But we do have a quiz. Check that description. Go do that. And you don't have to do anything, nothing special. You're not paying for it. It's a free quiz to help you figure out your division, okay? So that's fit model. That's, a lot of you watching, if that sounded perfect to you, okay, write that down. Note that down in your head, at least, that maybe that's the division you want to be in as we talk about the next ones here. So bikini, if we're looking at our totem pole, let's talk about bikini next. Bikini is just above fit model there. And this is a division that focuses fundamentally on a lot of the same things, because fit model really is bikini kind of light, right? It's old school bikini. It's the older look. Well, bikini of today is that same principle with more muscle and more condition. Okay, so what that means is bikini focuses heavily on the hourglass shape, same as fit model, but it's focused more in exemplifying bigger shoulders, more rounded out deltoids, more development in the upper body, oftentimes more dramatic tapers into the waist due to the muscle size that's going to be carried up top. And then lower body, glutes, hamstrings, and quads, going to be significantly more muscle presented there in bikini than we would see in fit model. Okay, so everything else still applies. It's all about the hourglass. You want to be symmetrical, upper, lower, left, right. You want to really have that, lock that down. And conditioning wise, remember, this is our level of leanness. You're going to be leaner here. Okay, this is going to be a leaner look than fit model. Absolutely. Most bikini competitors, I don't like to say, body fat percentages and things like this, but you will be lean. You'll be a very lean, type of an athlete if you are training in bikini, because that's where it's required to do well in this division. And, our conditioning markers would be flat stomach, not showing extra body fat there. Also slight separation between the glutes and the hamstrings tie-in. So fit model specifically notes do not have. Bikini, you do want to have, and you will have if you are dialed in, ready to go on stage. So definitely a leaner division, overall more muscular, still focuses on the hourglass shape. Now, this is a division, for those of you women out here watching, that really like all of those things that I just said, the hourglass shape, a little bit more muscle, getting leaner. You like that look, and you also like to feel like that all of the time, okay? Because bikini, with how symmetrical it is, with how it has to be, so developed and so dialed in, you're realistically going to look like a bikini competitor to some degree 365 days a year. And we'll say that many more times as we go through these divisions ongoing, but realistically, bikini, the look of today is a lot more advanced. It is a lot more difficult to attain, and it requires basically diligent effort all of the time on your training and on your diet, 365 to get that look and maintain that look in whatever fashion. So you want to make sure that if you like that look and you have that look, you're going to have that all the time. And I'm not saying you're going to be super shredded lean, 365, that's not realistic. That's not going to happen, but you will still always maintain that shape and that size to some degree, and have to go through stages of adding more muscle, improving upon the muscle or whatever it is throughout the season. So bikini is a really great division if you like pro cut bikinis, the smaller types of cuts that you can get. If you like all the bling on the bikinis and you want that, that's a deal breaker for you. If you don't have it, then this is definitely a division for you that you want to consider. And also, if you do prefer to be a little bit bigger and a little bit leaner, okay? Like if you look at the top 5 Olympians in bikini and you're like, wow, I would really like to look like that one day. Well, it's probably a good call to say that it's a division you should consider. And based on that, you really should not consider doing fit model, right? Because fit model, it's a step back from bikini in pretty much every regard. So most bikini competitors, I know a lot of them have currently jumped into it. I think as we see the division evolve, many of them will return back to bikini, and or there will be very less amounts of competitors doing that kind of jump back and forth, because it's just going to be a very clear delineation. Bikini competitors are going to be in bikini and fit models are going to be in fit model, and that's going to be the way that it works. And that's also going to be how, the organizations really do want to break that down. So bikini division will often, go through cycles of where sometimes it looks a little bit softer and a little bit less muscular, and then other times it looks super shredded and big. Really, that seems to be the nature of the beast. It kind of cycles through the years as we go. But right now, as it sits 2025 March, me recording this video based on what I've seen at competitions, I would say that bikini is kind of returning to roots in some way, where muscular size and density is kind of being pulled down, as well as condition. A little bit softer, a little bit less muscle. Those athletes are tending to be the ones winning even at pro competitions right now, compared to very big, very lean athletes that we're seeing. So the good time for a lot of competitors to be getting into this. It's requiring less extreme, anything to be a bikini competitor. So from a coaching perspective, again, what could you expect, right? Which I don't know if you guys even want to hear all that, but I think it's useful info, right? Give you a little bit of idea. I can't really speak to the industry, because a lot of the coaches in the industry do things I would never do, don't agree with, and don't think you should do. But bikini, what you could expect, right, is you're going to oftentimes be training much, much more than you would in Fit Model, right? 3-4 days a week is probably not a realistic thing due to the muscle that you're going to need, the size you're going to have, so on and so forth. So you're probably looking at, 5-day splits, even up to 6-day splits at most times when you're going to be training for this. And that could be, upper, lower. You might be doing 3 leg days a week. A lot of my bikini competitors are doing 3 leg days a week. It's just the way it is to get that muscle and bring that density that you need in the lower body to present a tie-in, so on and so forth. So you're going to be training 5-6 days a week. So automatically, great division for those of you ladies out here who love spending time in the gym. You want to be going there. Like if you have an off day and you don't know what to do with yourself, okay, well, bikini might be a better fit for you over, let's say, Fit Model, where it would be less time in the gym, so on and so forth. Cardio, right? So cardio is often going to be required in most bikini preps to some degree. There are athletes that can get away with doing no cardio. So I've had, some of those in my career. It's not common. It's not like, I could say 70% of people don't do cardio. No, it's probably going to be something like 80% of everybody that competes in bikini is going to end up doing some form of cardio. The industry, kind of does way too much cardio in a lot of ways. I don't believe in that. I don't think you should ever be doing 2 hours of cardio a day, blah, blah, blah. But you will see that being done by other coaches and other teams and things of that nature. I don't agree with it, but you definitely can end up doing more cardio in bikini because, again, your conditioning look, that is going to be a harder look. You're at a much leaner body fat percentage. It's not a natural lean body fat percentage, meaning like you're not going to ever just be walking around and just have that. You're going to always have to be working for that to attain a bikini look, which is why it's not realistic to be stage lean 365 days a year in bikini. Whereas Fit Model, actually, you could probably maintain a Fit Model condition all the time because it's a pretty natural, reasonable women's condition in a lot of ways. Bikini, however, no. So most people will end up doing cardio to some degree. Most women out there will end up doing cardio to some degree, no matter what, in bikini. And, coaching's perspective here, most of my athletes are going to be doing HIIT. They're going to do maybe 3-4 sessions of HIIT a week, high intensity interval training. Can't talk if you know what that is, right? Which 15-20 minutes, no big deal, but it is hard work. It is something else you have to consider for your gym time, for your splits, for everything else that you're doing. And then some athletes do occasionally require more than that, where you may be doing, more steady state cardio, could be 45 minutes, could be up to an hour a day, things like that. Those are not uncommon things in bikini division due to, again, the level of condition you have to maintain, that you have to get to. And that's just part of the game. So that is, again, something you want to factor in when you're picking your divisions. What do you need to be doing? How do you need to be training? What kind of look do you like? All of that. And, bikini, if that sounds great, if you love that, if you're like, yeah, I love a little bit of cardio, no problem. I like to, train a little bit of time in the gym. Okay, well, let's talk too about the diet and make sure we focus on that as well, because obviously that's a huge part of anybody's goal in what they're doing as a competitor, no matter what division you select. So diet in bikini is often going to be not extreme, but it is harder for sure than Fit Model, no doubt. You're going to have to be, a little bit more stringent with your diet, stay on top of it a bit more. You're not going to be dieting on as high of calories, where like Fit Model, you could diet, on much higher calories than you can in bikini. However, I am a firm believer you do not need to get to extreme lows in bikini. I know a lot of coaches in the industry, again, and a lot of the horror story stuff that I hear and I see out in the environment, in the bodybuilding industry, especially women's bodybuilding, coaches putting athletes on 600 calories a day, 800 calories a day. Absolutely disagree with it. Don't think you need to be doing it. Do not do it, okay? But you can reasonably expect to have to diet below whatever your maintenance calories is, and do that somewhat, aggressively over time, especially as prep goes on, to get to the right level of conditioning and body fat percentage. It will not be easy. It is work. It is hard to be on a diet. Anyone who's ever dieted knows that. You are forcing your body to burn body fat. That's the way it goes. And with that, it is a much more, in other words, extreme version of dieting versus Fit Model. So you will be on a bit more of a deficit. Again, you don't have to go into any of the crazy zones. You don't have to go into the sub 1,000 calories. Would never ever suggest that, would never do that, would never, I mean, just don't do that. Don't even consider it. Okay. It's crazy. You can diet with your health in mind and not mess anything up, not mess up your hormones, your metabolism, so on and so forth in bikini. And you can be successful in competing in bikini. Now, we do have to, as we start talking about bikini now and moving up, start talking about PEDs a little bit as well. So bikini, fit model, as it sits, I mean, I don't know if people are using PEDs in fit model. I'm sure we will see that happen. But I mean, you go to the gym, and PEDs, by the way, performance enhancing drugs, steroids, things like this. If you go to the gym today, there's going to be a lot of people in your gym that are just average everyday people taking some form of a PED. So I'm sure there is fit model athletes. We may see that happen, but definitely bikini athletes on stages across the entire industry. They could be amateurs, they could be pros. There will be some that are going to use PEDs. So fit model at this time, that criteria definitely does not require anybody does that. In fact, I mean, it would probably end up not going in your favor, because if you started to look too lean, too big, you're going to place poorly in fit model. Bikini, you will see, athletes that do take PEDs and will take them to achieve whatever stage look they bring. However, that is not a requirement. That is not a standard. That is not what you have to do to compete in bikini. I'm a firm believer you can do this naturally. You can absolutely compete in bikini naturally, and you can do that across the board. And we do see that. And the judges do echo that feedback as well. They say, hey, you know what? Bikini criteria does not, I mean, you're not trying to look like, Mr. Olympia or something like this, where it'd be astronomically impossible to do naturally. Bikini is one of these divisions where if you can train hard, you can do that right, you can follow your diet, you can do these things, and you can do it for long enough and be patient with the growth process and everything else. You can definitely attain a bikini type of physique without having to take PEDs and stuff. However, it is part of the sport, and I'm nobody to tell you what to do with that. I would obviously suggest do not do it. I coach naturally. That's what I believe in. But there are, again, going to be athletes that are in, your classes at any level that are going to be taking them. So if that's a deal breaker for you or something you want to consider, well, then you want to look at, the Natural Federation, the NPC Naturals, in other words, where they have natural events, tested events, things like that, where you can specifically compete there. However, I will say that I have athletes on stages every single weekend that are competing against athletes that are on PEDs, and we still do really well. We still win. We still, beat them, so on and so forth, right? So again, not a requirement, something people will do, nothing you can do about that. But that is a factor that we have to talk about. Now, let's move on to wellness. And by the way, if you're still watching, I know I'm rambling, but hopefully you're getting a lot out of this. My goal is to make sure that you really understand so much that you can pick a division after this. Again, check out the link if you want to do the quiz that will really help you hammer that out, give you better insights, better ideas. And also, if you do hit that quiz, hopefully it gives you the lockdown idea that the division you want to be in, okay? So next on our list, we go back to our totem pole. We had fit model down here. We have bikini right here. Now we are up into wellness. So wellness was a division, came out 2020. Basically, very similar to bikini, but a lower body dominance. So this is the only asymmetrical women's division there is, where you specifically need to be asymmetrical, meaning you need to showcase more lower body muscle than you do upper. And that is, again, one of these things you have to consider for a 365 days a year look, because you will have that all the time as a wellness competitor. So this division really came out for those that liked bikini, wanted to be in bikini, maybe were even competing in bikini, but they oftentimes were scoring not the way they wanted, not placing the way they wanted because their lower body was too dominant. Or those of you women out there that were looking from the sidelines, hadn't even jumped in yet, but said, I can't do bikini. I mean, my legs are too big, my glutes are too big, so on and so forth. Well, wellness came along as a place for those of you out there to thrive, to succeed, and to be able to grow, basically. And that ultimately, now we're on the 5th year of this division, and we have really seen how it plays out. And we've seen a lot of craziness over the past years, but realistically, the fundamentals are pretty similar. In wellness, you basically, the torso, so everything from the waist up, the waistline itself, the shoulders, the arms, so on and so forth. You could put bikini and wellness competitors together, and they would have very close ratios, very close symmetry, very close development there, very close conditioning there, across the board. So it's basically a bikini torso across the board there. So if you like that fullness to the shoulder, a little little bit more of that muscle up top, taper into the waist, all those good things. That is what we're talking about in wellness as well. Now, lower body wise is where things ramp up. So a lot of fundamentals are the same, meaning obviously, you need glute development, you need quad development, you need hamstring development, but in wellness, it is massively more. So you have very, very developed glutes, very, very developed large quads that present sweeps from the front and from the back, and also hamstrings and glutes overall that are so developed that you show a very clear tie-in. If you look at the top Olympians, top 5, top 10, you will see hard, deep tie-ins. This is due to a lot of muscle development as coupled with stage condition. So conditioning in wellness is exactly the same as bikini. It's basically identical. It should be about the same. However, wellness athletes often do look a bit leaner, and it's just because of the amount of muscle they showcase in the lower body. So really what we're talking about is a lot more muscle in the lower body, a lot bigger of a look down there, and purposely being asymmetrical. Now, the muscle groups themselves with the glutes and the quads and the hamstrings in the lower body, they do need to be symmetrical and they do need to match. You want to be asymmetrical up and down, meaning upper body appears smaller than lower body. However, you still have a lot of the same principles where symmetry needs to match. If you come out there with massive quads and no glutes, it's not going to favor you. If you come out there with too big of glutes and no quads, vice versa, right? Same problem. So realistically, this division was created for those women out there that like that lower body dominant look and you like it all the time. If you do not, enjoy wearing jeans ever because they just don't fit, this type of thing, it's a joke I make when I'm doing consults with people, but that's the division for you. If leggings are your best friend, you wear them 24/7 because they're the only thing that fits your quads, your glutes, so on and so forth. This is the division for you. And realistically, training perspective wise, it's more. It's going to be more, okay? You're going to be doing a lot more volume. You're going to be doing a lot more. It's the most out of the three we've talked about. Definitely more than bikini here, and obviously more than fit model. And that's due to the fact that you have to create a lot of muscular density, a lot of size in the quads, a lot of glute size, a lot of hamstring size. And especially if you want to get up into the pros here and beyond that, it's going to be a lot of work, a lot of volume, and a lot of training. So wellness competitors, again, are going to probably be mostly falling into the split of training 5-6 days a week. I have known of competitors in wellness that are doing well that are training 7 days a week. So it is one of those factors where you're spending a lot of time in the gym and you're also doing very hard, grueling, long sessions for most. And that's because, again, it's just what's required of the lower body musculature, the density, to be able to create that look. It's just the way it is. So when I'm training a wellness competitor, it's a lot of volume. Our split often looks something like 3 leg days a week, 3 lower body days a week, maybe a glute focus day, a quad focus day, hamstring focus day. Overall, it's different for everybody, like I said, because I'm doing custom programming, but it does emphasize that upper body work. Upper body work in wellness is lighter than your leg days for sure, but it's still going to be hard work. It's still going to be a lot, of lifting, a lot of focusing on that size and getting that right development up top without overdoing it, by the way, because it can be very easy. And a lot of wellness competitors have learned that lesson over time. If you start to overdo the upper body, bad news. You don't want to look symmetrical. This is the division where you want to look asymmetrical on purpose. And with that, you need to be doing that. So, I would say modest to say a split of 5-6 days a week. That's where you want to be. And you will be doing that pretty hardcore, pretty intense. It would be very common, I would estimate, for wellness lower body workouts to take probably up to 90 minutes. It would not be out of the park to say that would be required. Some people will do less. Oftentimes people are going to be doing around their hour to 90 minutes. If you can set that time aside and you're good with that, you love spending time in the gym, you love getting, pushing your lower body to the point where you're like, what the heck am I doing with myself? That's a great division for you. That's where you want to be, right? Cardio wise, pretty similar to bikini, because it's the same condition, right? So cardio, you can get away with doing none if you're one of those people that can really just train and diet and you do good. And sometimes you can actually do that a little bit easier in wellness than bikini because you're training so much harder and more in wellness, doing, a lot of heavy compounds, a lot of metabolic stuff is going to happen where your metabolism is revved up from the leg work you're doing and whatever. You might be able to actually do a little bit less cardio in wellness than bikini, but generally it's going to be pretty much the same, where, you could expect having to do minimum a couple HIIT sessions a week, maximum maybe 40 minutes, hour of cardio, some amount of time a week. Everybody's different. I'm just giving you general things. Again, big red flag if you got coaches out there telling you to do 2 hours cardio a day, one fasted, one this, don't be doing that stuff. It's not good. It's not going to favor you. But it is common, again, to encounter the fact that you will have to meet an unnatural level of condition in wellness division that will put you in the spot where cardio, can be part of your prep. It probably is for about 80% of people that are doing it. That's important to remember. Now, dieting wise, very similar again to bikini. You're going to be dieting more aggressively. You're going to be dieting to achieve about the same condition as bikini. So it's not as simple as fit model where it's maybe a moderate deficit. You're going to be in a harder deficit in wellness for sure. And really, that's just part of the game. So the main takeaway here is wellness is for that lower body dominance. If you like that look, there's no other division for you because it's the only asymmetrical division. This is where you want to be. This is where you're going to want to, stay. And that's where you will want to focus and be. Okay. Now we got to talk about figure next. So figure above all. Okay. We go fit model, we go bikini, we go wellness, we go figure. Figure is the biggest and the leanest women's division out of this group that we're talking about today right now. So in this division, you can expect a lot more muscle in the upper body, rounded out deltoids, almost looking like turtle shell delts. That's what I often say to people when they're considering figure. Dramatic V tapers from the lats, very narrow waists, and lower body musculature that is also matching in every single way, coupled with much leaner conditioning than bikini and wellness both. Okay, so very lean here, showing a lot more lines, separations, things like this in figure, and a lot more muscle. So this is a division that's focused on really a lot more upper body than any of the other women's divisions. So if you like to build your shoulders, you like to build your back, you like to have that V-tapered look, that's really what figure is all about. It's all about that V-taper. And then the symmetry up, down, left, right. It's even tighter here to look at that than it is bikini and wellness because, again, you can see more visible muscle. So you do want to make sure that you are very symmetrical. You are training to basically look somewhat like a statue. Okay, that's really what it's like. It's like a very developed, muscular, lean look where you're going to showcase all of that. And so figure is the best division for those women that really like the upper body and they like to train upper body and they like that V-taper look and they want to have it all the time. And that's, again, where you're going to be. Figure, you will prep less, probably, okay? And that's an important consideration for bikini, for wellness, for fit model. I mean, fit model, you could almost compete probably most of the year if you really wanted to and you were already in the zone. Bikini and wellness, you will have to take times for off season, so on and so forth, to build the required muscle. Figure, you will probably actually spend more time building muscle than you will competing, just as a general sense, because of the amount of muscle that is required, right? So that's one of those factors where it's going to be just brought in there that you are having to attain that look, you're having to build that muscle. It is a very unnatural amount of muscle here again, and an unnatural look in a lot of ways. So you do need to train very hard to get that. However, if that's the look that you like and that's what you want, then this is the only division for you out of these other three that we have talked about. It's the only one to consider because that realistically is the spot where you're going to be training all the time to have that look, and it's the most focus on the upper body and really the only women's division that does have a heavy emphasis on the upper body out of these few that we are talking about today. So best division for those that want to be very lean. You like that lean look, you like dieting real hard, and they want to have a lot of muscle. You like spending a lot of time in the gym in doing those things. So let's talk a little bit coaching perspective here. So figure athletes, I'm often putting on splits about 5-6 days a week, generally body part type splits. So it could be a back day, could be a quad day, could be where we're literally just focusing on breaking these muscles down and regrowing them, building them the way we want, making sure that shape matches, that balance is all there. Everything is there. That's really what we're looking for all the time. And you kind of do tend to break it down a little bit differently here because the symmetry factor is so important that you really want to emphasize and focus on each group. So again, you're going to spend a good amount of time in the gym every week doing this. Could be up to 6 days, 5-6 days a week in the gym training and training hard. You're building muscle, you're adding mass, you're adding size, you're doing this. It's a lot of work. So that's one of those things to consider. Conditioning wise, cardio, for example, you're going to pretty much always be doing cardio as a figure competitor. It's just the way it is because you are leanest out of our hierarchy here of divisions right now. And that means cardio is your friend. So if you like cardio, you're one of those people. Like, there are people out there, believe it or not, if you're watching and you're not one of them, you're not one of them. But there are people that they wake up and they're like, I can't wait to do an hour of cardio right now, start my day. Hey, if you like that, good. Figure might be a place for you to think about, because you're going to pretty much always be doing some type of cardio on your prep for figure. It'd be very hard to attain with just diet and training unless you're okay with dieting very extreme. So most people are going to do a blend of a calorie deficit with diet plus, cardio for a further deficit to get that condition. And that, cardio, again, could be HIIT training, could be steady state. It's all going to be different for each person. But in a general sense, those things are a factor that you will have to consider, that you're probably going to be doing probably with like 98% certainty cardio on your preps for figure, and maybe all the time, because you're going to have to basically, maintain a relatively good condition year round, or you're not going to be able to pull it back into a figure condition for stage very easily. The other thing to consider is diet. So on your preps, it's going to be a very aggressive diet. You're achieving the leanest level of condition. You're going to have to diet very hard and often for longer. So, fit model diets, you could probably get away with doing short diets, 8, 12 weeks. Bikini and wellness, 12, 16, up to 20 weeks probably. For figure, you're probably looking at minimum starting like 20 weeks with a diet. It's probably more competitors doing better with 24, 28, things like that, where they're taking a longer period of time to diet to preserve as much muscle as possible. And also, you just need to get a very lean look. So it's going to take some time. So with that, again, your preps are longer, your preps are dieting harder and all of it. But again, like I said, if that sounds like your game, you are the figure competitor. There's no other place for you. If you like that look, you like that size, you like that density, you like the idea of training all, maybe 8, 9 months, a year, building muscle to go compete and do one show and that's it. Like if you like that, which there are competitors out there, the figure athletes I coach, they're like that. They like, that's the division for you. So that's another factor. And you really can't look at bikini or wellness and say that is going to be the best place for you, unless you want to downsize your upper body, do things like that, because it is a very different look. And it is fundamentally, I just find the athlete's mentality is very, very different there. PEDs, we didn't really mention it on wellness, but it's basically the same as bikini, right? Those are going to be a factor in that sense. Again, have natural competitors in wellness competing on stages every week and doing very well. So again, not required, in my opinion, by the criteria. When you start to move into figure, you start to get obviously like, okay, well, at the top levels here, figure starts to, it's going to get up there to the point where it's going to look like, there's a lot more that you would have to do or consider PD wise to be successful at the top level. However, still the natural path of things, such the natural events, so on and so forth. There are absolutely many natural competitors in the NPC, and, you should consider obviously staying natural as much as you possibly can for as long as you can for whatever effect. And that's always going to be my belief, in my opinion, that you should do it naturally anyway. And figure, it starts to climb into the effect where you're getting very lean, you're getting, a lot bigger, and those things, again, you're pushing the unnatural factor of what's required of your body. And then thus you will see a lot of competitors taking XYZ things to achieve that look. So if you're in figure, that's something you're going to want to know, because you will compete very clearly against other competitors taking all sorts of other PEDs and so on and so forth, especially, if you're natural, unless you are doing the natural routes at the natural events, so on and so forth. So that is my breakdown, right? And hopefully you have a pretty good idea there. Now, there are some other women's divisions. There's women's physique, there's fitness, there's women's bodybuilding. These divisions, they do climb in, muscularity, conditioning. Overall, this is where you just get bigger and bigger and bigger and leaner. So, these divisions are kind of the minority divisions. There's not as many people doing these. However, those that do them, they love them. You wouldn't have even watched this video this far if you were already considering one of those, because you just would have been like, none of these divisions make any dang sense to me. None of this is adding up. I don't even know. Because you're already so much further along, right, in the amount of muscle that you would want or have or any of that. And either way, if you've never started, you're not going to go start with women's open bodybuilding. I mean, it's just not going to be the thing. So those other women's divisions, if you want a separate video going into highlights on those, I can do that. But realistically, most competitors are going to land in one of these 4 divisions that I talked about today. And hopefully that gave you some great insight into which one you should consider. Now, if you didn't do the quiz, made it all the way through this video, definitely go hit that quiz. It gives you a much better insight into what you need to be doing, what you need to consider. And also I'll give you some free tools, tips, strategies with that as well to consider on your journey for whatever division is best for you. As always, I'm available for questions anytime. Obviously, I do coach for all these divisions. So if you want to do a consultation, you want to talk to me, you want to ask me questions, you want me to tell you what division is going to be best for you myself, I can do that. All right. So let me know anytime. Drop in the comments. You can reach out to me, Ryan at TeamFFLEX.com for email or on any of my social media, and I will answer your questions, chat with you anytime. All right. And I appreciate you watching. I know it's a long video, but hopefully it does help you gain better insight into what division is going to be best for you for the 2025 season and beyond. All right. Thank you for watching. Coach Ryan is out.